the moment that broke the silence. The night was calm. The city lights shimmered like tiny stars fallen to the earth, and the air was filled with the kind of quiet that comes before something unforgettable. Then it happened. A few blurry photos appeared online. They were not ordinary photos. They showed Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock walking together, side by side, away from the noise of Hollywood events, away from red carpets and flashing cameras. The pictures looked simple at first, just two people walking, but there was something in their expressions that caught the eye of millions. The internet could not stay silent. In minutes, the images spread across every corner of social media. People asked the same question again and again. Was this friendship? Was this love? Or was it something deeper that words could not explain? For years, fans had dreamed about these two. They had worked together, laughed together, and built unforgettable on-screen moments. People always believed they shared a connection that went beyond film. And now, as the world saw them walking quietly together, the old dreams returned with new fire. Comments flooded every post. Some people celebrated, writing words filled with joy. Others doubted, searching for hidden truths behind their walk. But no matter what side they chose, everyone agreed on one thing. This was not ordinary. This was a story that carried weight. A story that might change how people see love, friendship, and trust in a world where most things break too easily. Keanu, known for his silence and kindness, looked calm. His face carried the same gentle strength that had made him loved across the world. Sandra, with her warm smile and eyes that carried both joy and sorrow, looked steady by his side. They were not holding hands, yet it felt as if they were bound by something stronger. It was not romance in its loudest form. It was something softer, deeper, something people could feel even without being told. The world leaned closer to the screen, searching for answers in those simple steps they shared. But behind the smiles and calm steps, there was more than the world could see. Both Keanu and Sandra had walked through storms in their lives. They had faced grief, loneliness, heartbreak, and pressure that could crush even the strongest soul. Yet here they were, walking together, not as broken people but as survivors who chose kindness over bitterness. It was not just their walk that moved people. It was the silent message that life may hurt, but it can never steal your strength if you hold on to humility and respect. The internet exploded with stories. Every blog, every news channel, every fan page tried to explain the moment. Some called it a reunion of old friends. Others whispered it was the start of a love story. Hashtags rose, millions joined the conversation, and still the truth remained quiet. Only Keanu and Sandra knew why they had chosen that night, that walk, that silence. And the silence itself became louder than words. This was not just celebrity news. It was not just entertainment. For many people sitting alone in their rooms, struggling with pain or loneliness, the sight of Keanu and Sandra together gave hope. It reminded them that life does not end with heartbreak. It reminded them that true respect, kindness, and resilience can bring people together in ways that the world may never fully understand. People began sharing their own stories under the photos. Stories of lost love, second chances, and the quiet strength it takes to keep moving forward when the world feels heavy. The walk of two stars became the walk of millions who had ever felt broken but still kept going. Yet, beneath the glow of admiration and excitement, a shadow began to rise. With every rumor came pressure. With every headline came the weight of expectations. Both Keanu and Sandra knew this would not stay simple. Soon, they would have to face questions they were not ready to answer. The world was waiting for them to speak, but silence was their shield. And sometimes silence protects a truth too powerful to be spoken too soon. The night ended, but the story had just begun. The internet was restless. The fans were burning with curiosity. And somewhere in the quiet, Keanu and Sandra sat together, knowing the storm outside would only grow louder. But within that storm, they also knew something important. When respect and kindness are real, no noise can destroy it. And so the story begins. When silence turned into noise, the morning after their quiet walk, the world was no longer the same. Phones buzzed with alerts. News anchors repeated the same few seconds of video again and again, and headlines screamed with guesses. Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock together again was on every screen. People across different countries, languages, and cultures stopped what they were doing to watch. Even those who had no interest in movies felt pulled into the storm, because this was not just about two stars. It was about the mystery that connected them, a mystery no one could easily solve. Keanu and Sandra had not spoken publicly. They had given no interviews, no posts, no explanations. Yet their silence did not calm the crowd. Instead, it fueled a fire. Fans searched for hidden signs in old interviews, digging up videos from years ago when they spoke kindly about each other. In those moments, people tried to find proof of something bigger, but while the internet searched, the truth remained only between them. Inside their homes, both felt the weight of attention. Keanu sat in his small living room, his phone filled with unread messages. Old friends, reporters, even strangers who somehow found his number were trying to reach him, but he ignored them. Silence had always been his way. Sandra, in her home, looked out of her window as cameras started to gather outside. Her heart was steady, but her mind kept racing. She had lived through media storms before, but this one felt different. This one felt personal. The conflict began quietly but grew stronger with every passing hour. It was not between Keanu and Sandra. It was between them and the world. The world wanted to own their story, twist it, control it, make it into something bigger than what it was. People forgot that behind the names were human beings with fragile hearts, private fears, and unspoken battles. And while fans shared love, others spread rumors, cruel comments, and doubts. It was the sharp edge of fame, the part that cuts deep no matter how strong you are. Keanu, always calm, felt the storm pressing against his peace. He had built his life around humility, staying away from the noise of Hollywood's wild attention. But this moment was different. His kindness was now being tested by the very people who admired him. Sandra, on the other hand, felt a different kind of struggle. She had faced whispers before, and each time she had stood tall. But this time, the whispers touched her heart. Because in her silence there was something real, something precious she did not want to lose to the noise. As the day went on, the world began to divide. Some people defended them, writing that their walk was a symbol of respect and unity in a world that often celebrates scandals. Others demanded answers, turning curiosity into anger. The internet had exploded, and now it was burning with fire. What no one knew was that behind closed doors, Keanu and Sandra finally spoke. They sat together in a quiet room, away from cameras, away from questions. The first words were heavy but honest. Sandra said softly, "Do you think we made a mistake walking like that?" Keanu paused, his calm voice steady as he answered, "No, kindness is never a mistake." His words were simple, but they carried the strength of a lifetime. For Sandra, those words felt like a shield against the storm. Yet even as they found comfort in each other's presence, a new twist was waiting. Someone close to them, someone they thought they could trust, was preparing to sell private details to the media. Not out of hate, but out of greed. And once those details reached the public, the storm would no longer be about blurry photos. It would become personal, cutting deeper than either of them expected. The silence that had once protected them was about to be broken, and when it broke, the world would not just watch, it would judge. The question was no longer if they could walk together. The question was if they could stand together when the storm grew darker. The betrayal in the shadows. The storm outside was loud, but what hurt more was the storm that started inside. In every story of fame and trust, there is always one person who sees opportunity where others see friendship. For Keanu and Sandra, that person was close, too close. Someone they had once welcomed, someone who had been near them during the quiet moments, was now ready to sell their secrets. It began with whispers. One entertainment site suddenly published details that no photo could capture. Things about their private dinners, their conversations, and even their laughter when no cameras were around. It was the kind of detail that only a friend could know. The internet jumped on it, treating those words like truth. But what the world did not see was the knife hidden inside those words. Betrayal is not loud. Betrayal is quiet, like a soft voice in the dark that suddenly steals your peace. Keanu read the article first. His eyes stayed calm, but his heart felt the cut. He had always trusted only a few, and now even that small circle was broken. Sandra found out later when her phone rang with endless messages. She read the lines, her hands shaking, and whispered, "Who would do this?" Her voice carried pain, not because the world was curious, but because someone they trusted had turned their kindness into profit. The betrayal became fuel for the storm. Media channels started fighting to grab the next exclusive. Old stories were dragged up, twisted, and reshaped into lies. What had begun as a simple walk now looked to the world like a scandal. Fans were confused, torn between believing the rumors and defending their heroes. And in the middle of it all, Keanu and Sandra faced a choice. Would they hide, protecting themselves from the fire? Or would they face it with the same humility that had always defined them? Sandra was the first to speak her heart. Sitting across from Keanu in the same quiet room, she said, "They don't know the truth. They don't know us." Her voice broke but did not fall apart. Keanu listened, his silence not empty but full of thought. After a long pause, he answered, "Truth doesn't need to be shouted. It needs to be lived." Those words gave Sandra strength, yet they also carried a risk, because the more silent they stayed, the more the world would invent its own story. The betrayal had already given the media a weapon. If they stayed quiet too long, lies might grow stronger than the truth. That night, while the world argued online, Keanu and Sandra spoke about their pain, their fears, and their memories. They remembered how life had tested them before, times of loss, grief, and heartbreak. They had survived those storms, not by shouting back at the world, but by holding on to kindness. And now they decided they would do the same again. But destiny was not finished testing them, because the one who betrayed them had not yet revealed everything. More secrets were waiting, secrets that would bring even heavier pressure. The world was about to see not just their strength, but their breaking point. The internet had exploded, once before, but now it was about to catch fire again, this time with details too sharp to ignore. When the fire spread, the first betrayal hurt, but the second wave was heavier, sharper, and harder to ignore. A new article appeared online, this time with photos and private details no one should have had. Moments that were quiet, sacred, and real were now broken open for millions of strangers to argue about. The media turned it into a circus. Every news channel repeated the story, adding more drama, more suspicion, more heat. The internet, already restless, now caught fire. Hashtags turned cruel, memes filled timelines, and people who once cheered for Keanu and Sandra began to doubt them. Some called it a hidden romance exposed, while others painted it as a secret deal between two stars trying to stay relevant. The truth no longer mattered. What mattered was the noise, and the noise was endless. Sandra sat in her kitchen, staring at the glowing screen of her phone. Her eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall. She whispered to herself, "Why do they not see us as people? Why do they see us only as stories to sell?" She felt the weight of being judged for simply walking beside someone she respected, someone she trusted. Keanu, meanwhile, stayed calm on the surface, but inside, he carried the quiet pain of seeing kindness turned into weapon. He had always chosen humility, believing silence protected what was sacred. But now, silence seemed like weakness to the world. Reporters were outside his gate, flashing lights filled his nights, and questions followed him like shadows. When they met again, the room between them was filled with unspoken weight. Sandra broke the silence. "If we say nothing, they will crush us. If we speak, they will twist our words. What do we do?" Her voice trembled, but not from fear, from the pressure of being pulled in two impossible directions. Keanu looked at her, his calm eyes steady. "We do what we always do. We stay true. Truth will outlast noise." His words were simple, but Sandra knew the risk. Truth was slow. Noise was fast. The world rarely had patience for truth. The second betrayal hurt them not only because of lies, but because of trust. Someone close had broken a bond. It was not just about fame. It was about betrayal of respect, betrayal of loyalty, and when respect is betrayed, it cuts deeper than any headline. Together, they made a decision. They would not hide. They would not fight with anger. Instead, they would face the world, not with fire, but with dignity. Sandra agreed, but added softly, "This will not be easy. The world does not forgive silence, and it does not forgive truth either." And she was right, because even as they planned to step forward, the world outside was already preparing another test. An interview request, louder than all others, was waiting. One stage, one chance, one moment where their voices would finally be heard. But the question was, could they stand tall when the world was waiting not to listen, but to judge? The fire had spread everywhere, and now they had no choice but to walk straight into it. The world watched. The day of the interview arrived like a storm that no one could escape. Every network promoted it. Every social media post counted down to it, and millions waited in front of their screens. The promise was simple. Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock would finally speak, but behind that promise was a mountain of pressure. People did not want truth. They wanted drama. They wanted tears, fights, or some confession they could turn into endless headlines. Keanu and Sandra sat quietly in the backstage room, away from the cameras for just a few minutes longer. The silence between them was heavy, but also steady. Sandra's hands trembled as she adjusted the simple bracelet on her wrist. Keanu noticed and gently said, "Breathe. We are not here to win them. We are here to stay true." Those words were small, but they calmed her. She looked at him and nodded. "Then we speak with honesty, no matter what they ask." The lights on the stage were blinding, the cameras sharp, and the audience restless. The host smiled with a practiced charm, but the questions were knives wrapped in silk. The first one was direct. "Are you in love?" The room went silent, waiting for an answer that would either confirm rumors or crush them. Sandra looked at Keanu. Keanu looked at the host, his calm voice steady as he said, "What we share is respect. In a world filled with noise, respect is rare, and we treasure it." His words did not confirm, nor deny, but they carried a weight no gossip could erase. The host pressed harder, asking about the photos, the private dinners, the so-called secrets. Sandra finally spoke, her voice gentle but firm. "People forget that we are human. We walk, we talk, we laugh, just like everyone else. Not everything has to be a story for sale." Her words broke the surface of the room, drawing quiet nods even from some who had come expecting scandal. The audience was split. Some leaned forward, hungry for more. Others sat back, touched by the humility in their voices. But the internet, watching live, was already boiling. Comments flew across the screen, some defending them, some mocking them, some twisting their words into new rumors. But in that moment, Keanu and Sandra were not performing for the internet. They were simply standing as two human beings asking for dignity. And that dignity, though quiet, was powerful. Yet just when it seemed they might survive the storm, the host pulled out something unexpected, a leaked message shown on a screen for millions to see. It was private, taken out of context and displayed as if it were proof of a hidden truth. The betrayal had struck again, this time in the most public way possible. The room gasped. Sandra's eyes widened, her breath catching in her chest. Keanu's face stayed calm, but his silence now felt heavier than ever. The world was watching. waiting to see if they would break. The breaking point, the leaked message glowed on the giant screen above them. Millions saw it at the same time. It was a short line, stripped of its context but sharp enough to cut deep. Whispers filled the live audience. Online, the explosion was instant. Screenshots, wild claims, endless comments flying like arrows. The trap had been set, and it looked like Keanu and Sandra were caught in it. Sandra froze for a moment. Her heart raced, her throat dry as the host leaned forward with a smile too wide. "Care to explain this?" The words dripped with triumph as if the truth no longer mattered, only the spectacle. The world expected silence. They expected tears, anger, or retreat. But Keanu did something no one predicted. He leaned into the microphone, his calm voice carrying through the tense air. "A message without its story is not truth. It is just a shadow." The audience went silent. The host tried to press again, but Sandra found her voice. Her eyes, wet but steady, looked into the crowd. "We are not perfect. We are human. We have moments of sadness, of honesty, of weakness. But that does not make us dishonest. It makes us real." The words cut through the noise. For a brief moment, the cameras captured not two celebrities trapped by scandal, but two human beings standing in their truth. It was raw, vulnerable, and powerful. Yet even as they spoke, the storm outside grew louder. Online feeds twisted their defense into new rumors. Some mocked, others cheered, many argued. But through it all, a different energy began to rise. People who had been silent started speaking up, defending them. Strangers shared stories of how they too had been judged unfairly, how they too had felt betrayed by people they trusted. What began as a scandal now started turning into something else. It became a mirror for millions who saw their own struggles in Keanu and Sandra's fight for dignity. Still, the cost was heavy. When the interview ended and they walked off stage, together, the weight of the moment pressed on them like a mountain. Sandra whispered, her voice breaking, "I don't know how much more I can take." Keanu looked at her, his calm eyes carrying both pain and strength. Storms end. Truth does not. Those words held her up, but they also carried a question neither dared to say out loud. How long could they stand before the storm broke them completely? Because in the shadows, the one who had betrayed them was not finished. Another move was waiting. One final blow that could either destroy their trust forever or prove it unbreakable. When truth rose from the ashes, the storm had grown too large to ignore. The betrayal that began with whispers and stolen moments was now preparing its final strike. One last secret, one last twist waited in the shadows, and when it came, it did not arrive as a rumor. It came as a broadcast. A tabloid released what they claimed was proof, a recording of a private conversation between Keanu and Sandra. The voice of betrayal was now undeniable. Someone close had recorded their quietest moment, a night when they spoke not as stars but as human beings carrying pain. Their words were gentle, filled with vulnerability, but twisted by the way it was presented. The internet caught fire again, declaring it the final blow. Sandra sat alone when she heard it first. The sound of her own voice exposed to millions cut deeper than any headline. She pressed her hands against her face and whispered, "They took even this from us." Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall for long. Keanu came to her side, his steps quiet, his presence steady. He had listened to the same recording, and though his face stayed calm, his silence was heavier than ever. He placed his hand on hers and said softly, "They can steal our words, but not our truth." Those words lit a fire in Sandra's heart. For days they had been pushed, judged, mocked, and betrayed. But now, with nothing left to hide, they had nothing left to fear. Together, they decided to face the world one last time, not to defend themselves, but to reclaim their dignity. They agreed to speak, not in interviews twisted for ratings, but directly to the people. A live message, simple and unfiltered, streamed to millions around the globe. When the cameras turned on, there was no stage, no bright lights, no host with sharp questions, just Keanu and Sandra sitting side by side. Sandra's voice was the first. It was steady, filled with quiet strength. What you have heard, what you have read, is only pieces of us. Pieces taken, cut, and sold. But we are not pieces. We are people. Keanu followed, his calm tone carrying the weight of truth. Respect is not a headline. Kindness is not a story to sell. We are not here to argue or fight. We are here to say that dignity matters. Not just for us, but for everyone who has ever been judged unfairly. The world listened. Some doubted, some cheered, but many felt something shift. For the first time in weeks, the noise softened. Strangers online wrote about their own betrayals, their own resilience, their own fight to keep dignity alive in a world quick to judge. The storm that had begun with blurry photos had now become something else entirely. It was no longer about scandal. It was about respect, kindness, and the strength to stand tall even when the world tries to break you. The one who betrayed them was soon forgotten, swallowed by the very noise they had created. But Keanu and Sandra remained not as perfect heroes, but as human beings who refused to let betrayal steal their truth. And so, from the ashes of doubt and cruelty rose something unexpected, a moment of unity. Millions who had once argued now stood together, reminded that in the end it is not rumors that last, but the quiet power of respect. Keanu and Sandra walked forward, not holding hands but walking side by side once again. And this time the world did not see scandal. It saw strength.